Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 29 and it's titled Bae'Zel. And if you haven't seen the show before, what we're doing is building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering using two non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less and using this as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community every day for all of June. So for our second to last deck, our commanders are going to be Lae'zel, Vlaakith's Champion, and Shadowheart, Dark Justiciar. So for this deck, obviously we are working with two characters that are definitely 100% for sure canonically together in the game, right? We all know that. So Lae'zel is 2 and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature Gith Warrior. If you would put one or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control, or on yourself, put that many plus one of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, then she has Choose a Background. Notably, both of our commanders are going to have Choose a Background today, but neither of them are going to be relevant since we don't have a background. Shadowheart is 3 and a black for a 3/4 legendary creature Human Elf Cleric, and she has 1 and a black, tap, sacrifice another creature, draw X cards where X is that creature's power, and once again, choose a background. So these two don't synergize together super well. Lae'zel cares about counters, Shadowheart cares about sacrificing creatures, but there are a couple of ways we can tie these two together using the themes of our deck. So these are going to be the kind of synergies that our deck is aiming to get through, and the first theme that we're going to talk about is Planeswalkers. Since Lae'zel can put an additional counter on our Planeswalkers whenever they would get a counter, that means that we can actually get a lot more use out of them a lot quicker than our opponents may expect, and it gives us a way to kind of stall out the board and do what we want to do with the game. So a good example of that is Kaya Ghost Assassin, which is 2 white-black for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker Kaya. She has a 0 ability to exile herself or up to 1 target creature and return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you lose 2 life. Then she also has a -1 ability. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And -2, each opponent discards a card and you draw a card. Being able to continuously activate Kaya is a very powerful ability in this deck, especially because Lae'zel is going to allow us to get more activations out of her before needing to exile her to reset her loyalty counters. But this is a great example of kind of how some of our synergies can work together. Moving on to our next theme, this one has a little bit more to do with Shadowheart, but is still relevant with Lae'zel, that is tokens. And more specifically, we want to have planeswalkers that create tokens to kind of get the most out of both of our commanders. So a good example of that would be Elspeth Sun's Champion, which is 4 white-white for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker Elspeth. +1, create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. -3, destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. And -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have flying. This is one of those cards that works well with both of our commanders. Being able to +1 and make 3 tokens, that gives us things that we can sacrifice to Shadowheart, while Elspeth coming in with an additional loyalty counter thanks to Lae'zel is going to put us in a position where we might be able to ultimate her sooner and then use those tokens to eventually win the game. Moving on to our final theme of the deck, since we're loaded up with a ton of planeswalkers, we obviously want to make sure that we can protect our planeswalkers. So to that end, we have cards like Onake Oathkeeper, which is 1 and a white for a 0/4 Ogre Spirit. Creatures can't attack planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each creature they control that's attacking a planeswalker you control. Also, on top of all of that, the Oathkeeper has a second ability. For 4 white-white, we can exile Onake Oathkeeper from our graveyard and return target planeswalker card from our graveyard to the battlefield. So this is a great way to prevent our opponents from attacking our planeswalkers, and yes, it doesn't stop them from attacking us directly, but that's okay. We would rather take the hit to our face rather than to our planeswalkers, because if we can keep ticking them up and keep getting more abilities out of them and eventually possibly ultimate them, that is most likely how we're going to win the game. Anyway though, those are all of our themes for today. So the next thing I want to do is take a look at some key cards. And these are cards that really synergize with what our deck is trying to do, and in a lot of cases are win conditions or value engines all on their own. So starting off, our first key card is probably pretty obvious for any Planeswalker deck. That is the Chain Veil. And the Chain Veil is 4 mana for a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't activate a loyalty ability of a Planeswalker this turn, you lose 2 life, and 4 and tap. For each Planeswalker you control, you may activate one of its loyalty abilities once this turn, as though none of its loyalty abilities have been activated this turn. This allows us to quite literally activate all of our Planeswalkers twice in one turn, and we do have some Planeswalkers that can very easily plus a couple of times and then very quickly ultimate, so this is a very powerful card that can send us pretty far ahead of the rest of the table. Moving on to our second key card, this one is Kaya Geist Hunter. And Kaya is 1 white-black for a 3 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Kaya. You can +1, creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control, a -2 ability, which is the main reason she's one of our key cards, until end of turn if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead, and -6, exile all cards from all graveyards, then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. This is one of those cards that, if left unattacked, basically, it's going to just win us the game. Now, obviously, our opponents can attack it down, they can attempt to remove it, but hopefully we have enough protections in place that we can play Kaya, immediately -2, make a ton of tokens from our other Planeswalkers, and then just slowly keep ticking back up because we have a giant board of blockers that, while it may be shrinking every turn because we're blocking or because there's board wipes or whatever, we can still hopefully eventually get to the point where our Planeswalkers can start ultimating and allow us to, once again, win the game. So Kaya is a great card to get down early, and it's a great card for our value. Moving on to our final key card, this one is Spark Rupture, and this one looks very strange, so let me kind of explain this. It is 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and each Planeswalker with 1 or more loyalty counters on it loses all abilities and is a creature with power and toughness each equal to the number of loyalty counters on it. And you may be looking at this card and thinking to yourself, why do we want to turn our Planeswalkers into creatures with no abilities? And the main answer to that is because of things like the Chain Veil and because of things like Lae'zel, we can actually have Planeswalkers that have a ton of loyalty abilities and a ton of loyalty counters, and therefore become giant creatures with Spark Rupture. This allows us to activate all of our Planeswalkers on our turn, cast a Spark Rupture, turn them into creatures, and then immediately hit our opponents with them, and possibly win the game a little bit out of nowhere, because there is a chance our opponents did not expect us to have a board at all when we start attacking with our Planeswalkers. Now, there is also some enchantment removal in here, just in case you need to get rid of the Spark Rupture, but most of the time it's going to win you the game. That, though, is the end of our key cards for today. So the next thing I want to do is take a look at some cool interactions in the deck. And these are cards that really synergize well with each other, but in a lot of cases are just fun cards that I want to highlight. So starting off, our first cool interaction is between the Elder Spell and Liliana, the Last Hope. Now, notably, I could put probably any Planeswalker in Liliana's place here, but I think that Liliana is the best for this cool interaction for a reason that we'll get to in just a minute. So first up, The Elder Spell is black for a sorcery, destroy any number of target planeswalkers, then choose a planeswalker you control, put 2 loyalty counters on it for each planeswalker destroyed this way. So if we have Liliana in play, and we cast the Elder Spell and destroy 5 planeswalkers, we get to put 10 loyalty counters on Liliana. That is incredibly important because Liliana has an ultimate of -7. So Liliana the Last Hope is 1 black for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Liliana, +1, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-1 until your next turn, -2, mill 2 cards, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and -7, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So essentially what we can do is play Liliana, cast the Elder Spell, and destroy planeswalkers to guarantee she ultimates immediately. Now, yes, we can't quite guarantee that our opponents will have planeswalkers, so in that case we probably do wind up destroying our own planeswalkers, but in a lot of cases it's worth it to be able to get the ultimate on probably a game-winning planeswalker. Liliana's, for example, just continues to churn out a ton of zombies, it gives us blockers every turn, synergizes really well with a lot of our token strategies, so she's probably the best one to ultimate right away. However, there's no planeswalker in this deck, well, I say no, there's probably a couple where the ultimates won't win us the game, but most of them certainly will. Moving on to our second cool interaction. This one is between 2 planeswalkers that share a name, and that is going to be Gideon of the Trials and Gideon, Ally of Zendikar. So, once again, I could probably put any Gideon planeswalker in the place of Ally of Zendikar, but I think these two also work very well together. So Gideon of the Trials is 1 white for a 3 loyalty planeswalker, Gideon. Until your next turn, prevent all damage target permanent would deal, that's his +1. And then he's a unique planeswalker in the sense that he has 2 0 abilities. His first 0 is until the end of turn, he becomes a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible and prevents all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. And his other 0, which is the reason he's here, you get an emblem with, as long as you control a Gideon planeswalker, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. This is a very powerful ability when we are chock full of Gideon planeswalkers, and is honestly one of the big reasons that Gideon is my personal favorite planeswalker. Very sad that he is no longer in the story for reasons that may be obvious if you know the story, but the reason that this works so well is because that emblem is just any Gideon planeswalker. It does not specifically have to be Gideon of the Trials. So if we play Gideon of the Trials and get the emblem, and someone kills Gideon of the Trials, we can still play Gideon Ally of Zendikar and still continue to get the effect of that emblem. And the reason I wanted to highlight Ally of Zendikar specifically is that he is 2 white for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker Gideon, +1 until end of turn. Gideon becomes a 5/5 human soldier ally creature with indestructible, prevent all damage that would be dealt to him. 0, put a 2/2 white knight ally creature token onto the battlefield, and -4, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +1/+1. If we are talking about having a Gideon planeswalker stay on the battlefield, Ally of Zendikar is the best one to be making tokens. Almost all the other Gideons do something with pumping or turn themselves into creatures, but Ally of Zendikar can 0 to make a 2/2 every single turn, meaning that we can very effectively protect our Gideon planeswalkers and therefore protect us from losing the game. Because even if someone were to, say, mill out our entire library, we still cannot lose the game as long as we control a Gideon planeswalker. So there's a lot of unique side cases that go into this, but this is still something I wanted to highlight because it's a very unique interaction. Finally though, we get to the end of our deck tech for today, and that is going to be the price of the deck. And today, our total deck price came in at $75.50, with our most expensive card, obviously being a planeswalker, in Tevesh Szat, Doom of Fools. And Tevesh Szat is 4 and a black for a 4 loyalty, legendary planeswalker Szat. +2, create 2/0/1 black thrall creature tokens, again sticking to our token theme. +1, you may sacrifice another creature or planeswalker. If you do, draw 2 cards, then draw another card if the sacrificed permanent was a commander. So we can just draw 2 cards by sacrificing some of our tokens, but if we want to sacrifice Lae'zel or Shadowheart, we will get an additional card. Or maybe we can activate his ultimate ability for -10, gain control of all commanders, put all commanders from the command zone onto the battlefield under your control. That is our commanders, that is our opponent's commanders, that is everybody. Then we can start sacrificing our opponent's commanders to draw 3 cards. So Tevesh Szat really does everything we want to be doing in this deck. It's drawing cards, it's making thrall tokens, it's potentially giving us a win condition by stealing commanders. And we didn't mention this earlier, but he can be your commander and he does have partner, although neither of those are relevant in this deck. And I imagine that is what mainly contributes to him being such an expensive planeswalker. Obviously, being a little bit more pricey means that he's in the command zone, people want to play with this card, so that's probably why he's there. Anyway though, that is the end of our deck tech for today. So thank you all so much for watching. I can't believe it's already day 29. There's only one more Pride Month deck coming after this one, so stick around, it's going to be a good one. But thank you all so much for watching. A shout out to all of our patrons and channel members. Thank you all so much for all of your support. And if you haven't already, I would love it if everyone could like the video and subscribe to the channel. We've put a ton of work into these videos this month, and it would be great to get a little bit of feedback on that. And if you've noticed, we're also very close to 2,000 subscribers, so I would love it if you could help push us over that limit by the end of the month. So once again, thank you all so much. I hope you've had a wonderful Pride Month so far, and I will see you on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.